We're ready for the next entry in our list of the Super Bowl era's most disappointing teams. After 3 straight entries from the NFC East, capped off by the 2010 Dallas Cowboys at number 29, we will be delving into number 28 today, and we will be doing that in just a moment. But first, we gotta talk about C-Score, a metric created by this channel that evaluates each and every team of the Super Bowl era beyond just looking at its record. To learn more about C-Score and how it works, be sure to check out the description of this video. Let's quickly run down on how a team qualifies for this list. A season with a positive C-score is then followed up by an even higher C-score that surpasses 15. That team will then have to register a season with a negative C-score. That third season becomes the disappointing one. The bigger the drop from season 2 to season 3, the bigger the disappointment. They were on their way to being the team of the 1970s, but the rise of another dynasty and a wrong foot in 1976 stopped the Miami Dolphins from doing so, earning this 28th spot. Thank you for joining us today. We are ready to roll. Coming off of back-to-back Super Bowl championships, both in dominant fashion, there was no reason to believe that the Miami Dolphins wouldn't again be strong contenders in 1974. And they were. They went 11-3, won the AFC East, and earned a C-score of 17.79. The Super Bowl was still pretty new coming into the 1974 season. Only 8 games had been played, but there had already been 2 back-to-back champions. The Packers won the first 2, doing so against the AFL, while the Dolphins had done so after the merger. It can therefore be argued that this was the bigger accomplishment, especially considering that this was only Miami's 8th season of existence. Winning it again would not only bring the three-peat, but it would give the Dolphins a championship for 1/3 of their entire existence. That would be equivalent to the Carolina Panthers or the Jacksonville Jaguars owning 10 championships. Let's not forget that they were also gunning for their 4th consecutive appearance in the Super Bowl. The regular season was but a prelude for the Dolphins, getting to the playoffs where they would match up with the re-emergent Oakland Raiders, the AFC's top team this season. This was the final season without playoff seeding, robbing Miami of a home game that would have been against the eventual Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers. The Dolphins looked to have control against Oakland early on, but it became a back and forth affair that the Raiders pulled out on a play that has now been immortalized as the Sea of Hands. It was a thrilling end to the contest, but a heartbreaking way to end the Dolphins season. Miami's record would drop the following season in 1975 to 10-4, but their performance level was higher. Their point differential rose from +111 to +135, and they played a more difficult schedule. For the 5th straight season, they finished in the top 6 in both points scored and points allowed. This is all reflected in their elevated C-score of 22.72. That extra loss did come back to haunt them though. With only 13 teams per conference and with only 14 games on the schedule, there was only room for 1 wildcard spot. Within the AFC East, the Baltimore Colts engineered not only one of the greatest single-season turnarounds in NFL history, but also one of the greatest in-season turnarounds in NFL history. 2-12 the year before, and 1-4 to start this season, they won 9 straight games to end the year at 10-4, a season known today as the Miracle on 33rd Street. Among those 9 straight wins were a fairly dominant victory over the Dolphins in Miami, and an overtime squeaker in the second-to-last game of the season against them at home. With Miami taking the sweep, and with both teams at 10-4, they ceded the division to Baltimore. Their only hope would be the wild card, but things were brewing over in the AFC Central. Already housing the defending Super Bowl champion Steelers, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Houston Oilers were also making massive waves, with both teams going undefeated outside the division. Houston matched Miami's 10 wins, but the Bengals, in their final season with franchise founder Paul Brown as head coach, notched 11, taking that wildcard spot. The Sea of Hands was certainly a bitter pill for the Dolphins to swallow the season before, but this may have been even worse. At least they were on the field for that prior elimination. They came back with an even better season, but not a better record, and of course, that is the ultimate arbiter. They can't even really look back at either of their other defeats as a lost opportunity, with those setbacks coming against the Raiders and the Oilers. If destiny exists in the NFL, and we have plenty of proof that it does, then it can play both the high notes as well as the low notes. The 1975 Miami Dolphins got hit with the A0. Now off the backs of 3 straight Super Bowl appearances, 2 Super Bowl championships, an undefeated season, a heartbreaking playoff elimination, and a painful exclusion from the playoffs, the Dolphins came into 1976 hungrier than Ramsey Bolton's Hounds. Eager to retake their place at the top, they were struck with bitter disappointment instead. They dropped all the way down to 6-8 and were distressingly just below average across the board, signified by their C-score of -1.347. After a 2-1 start to the season, including a shutout over the New York Jets, Miami suffered a 3-game losing streak, including a 3rd consecutive loss to the Baltimore Colts. Less than halfway into the season, they had already matched the most losses they had had in any season during the 70s. Not keen on breaking that record, they embarked on a 3-game winning streak, including an impressive home win over the excellent New England Patriots. The other 2 wins, though? One was completing the season sweep over the Jets, who were quite pitiful in 1976, and the other was against the expansion and winless Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who made pitiful look like the '85 Bears. Miami would have hoped to build some momentum off those wins, even if they weren't overly impressive. But instead, another 3-game losing streak followed against the meat of their schedule. Included in that streak was the Colts completing their sweep of the Dolphins for the 2nd consecutive season. They beat the Bills, then lost to the Vikings to close things out at 6-8. After those 5 consecutive seasons of finishing in the top 6 in both points scored and points allowed, Miami became the best of the worst in those categories this season, finishing 15th out of 28. And the drop-offs were across the board. Let's start with what we already know. From 1971 to 1975, the Dolphins' average rank in points scored was 3.8, and their average rank in points allowed was 3. 15 and 15 in 1976. Taken now in raw numbers, an average of 345.4 points scored to 263, 186.6 to 264 in points allowed. How about yards per play? Net yards per attempt, all the way down to last in the league, among so many other stats. They had some injuries for sure, but nothing too out of the ordinary. Let's take a look at another chart. This is once again a comparison between 1976 and the average of the previous 5 seasons. The first row is how many players in total that Miami needed to take the field. The second row is how many players played all 14 games, and the third row is how many players started all 14 games. Of course, this doesn't count would-be starters that missed the 1976 season, including Manny Fernandez, who was on the verge of retirement, Mike Colon, and rookie first-rounder Kim Bokamper. However, for the most part, the Dolphin disappointment can be attributed to a simple downturn in play and the need to replenish talent. Oh, and Bob Greasy not accepting his inner Ricky Vaughn. We're going to be hitting another point barrier here, with the Dolphins surpassing -24. But the gap between them and the Cowboys is only 0.3 of a point. We'll go ahead and let you know that the next gap is going to be much closer, but we won't tell you who it's going to be. You'll just have to tune in next time to find that out. Thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. Do the whole YouTube thing if you don't mind. Like the video, share and subscribe to the channel, and ding that alluring bell down there so that you can be notified when we release the next video in this series and every other video from the channel as well. In the end, 1976 proved to be a blip for the Dolphins. It was their first losing season since 1969, their first ever losing season as members of the NFL, and they wouldn't have another one until 1988. Bob Greasy put on his glasses, Don Shula reloaded the roster, and the city of Miami was revved up again, and the disappointment wouldn't last long. I would love to hear your thoughts about all of this. Does the fact that the Dolphins bounced back quickly relieve them of any disappointment? Or does it make it even more disappointing that they lost out on an entire season? Sound off on that, the series as a whole, or anything else you may have on your mind down in the comments section below. Thank you so much once again for joining us today, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.